On today's show, what's wrong with Rajon Holmes? Davion Mitchell returns to the lineup. And who you got? Tyrese or De'Aaron Fox? That's all coming up on the Row Report.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. This is the Royal Report, episode 10, a Sacramento Kings sports talk show with Calvin and Barry. We are here discussing a week of Sacramento Kings basketball. If you are a Kings fan, make sure you smash up that like button. And if you enjoy content like this, consider subscribing to the channel.
Welcome in today on the last Friday of 2021. Thanks for being here, Royal family. We're going to get started because we have a lot to cover in league news. So right off the bat here, let's get going. On Wednesday, Devin Booker joined an exclusive club early in the first quarter of Phoenix's game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Booker surpassed the 10,000 career point mark. The star guard recently turned 25, making him the 7th youngest player in NBA history to reach the milestone. Booker's had quite the career already in just 6 seasons. He has averaged 23 points, 4.6 rebounds, and 4.6 assists and 3.8 rebounds per game. He's already made 2 All-Star teams. He has a career 71-point game, and he just made his first appearance in the NBA Finals last season. He even joked that if Jeff Hornacek, who was the Suns' coach during Booker's rookie year, had played him more, he would already have passed 12,000 points. One thing is for sure, Barry, Book can absolutely fill it up, and we can expect to see him climbing the ladder of all-time scorers for many years to come.
Yeah, he's definitely a generational talent, a great player. Having Chris Paul on your team definitely helps you get to that final stage. We know he went last year. We'll see if they can make it again this year as well. Speaking of finals, a guy that has not made the finals since he played with LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, is now returning to the Brooklyn Nets as a part-time player. He said that he understood the Nets' decision not to have him as a participant, but he wasn't ready for the consequences. A crazy turn of events here. We see Kyrie Irving returning to practice, and he will play away games for the rest of the season. This just makes me ponder one question, Calvin. If you're the Brooklyn Nets, are you worried about home court advantage at this point for the playoffs?
Yeah, I think you have to be worried about it, but you know that you're going to play some road games in every playoff series anyway. It's just a shame that the Nets have to back away from their original stance due to so many players going into COVID protocol. Hopefully, Kyrie has been working on his jump shot during the time off, but even if he hasn't, he probably will still be better than the Boston Celtics were on Wednesday. The Celtics were an awful 4 of 42 from 3 in their game against the Clippers. Let me say that again, Barry. They were 4 of 42 from 3, and they were the home team. That 9.5 shooting performance was the second worst in NBA history among teams that have attempted at least 43s in a game. And the Celtics have struggled shooting all season long. Jason Tatum leads the NBA in missed field goals this season. It's quite amazing. Good thing Chimezie Metu didn't suffer from the same illness the other night, Barry.
Yes, the Kings have not been shooting incredibly well this season, but they are shooting well in crunch time. That's right. After Chimezie Metu's buzzer beater against the Mavericks on Wednesday night, the Kings now own 2 of the 5 game-winning buzzer beaters this season, and actually 4 out of the past 16 from last season as well. So they're about 25% of all the buzzer beaters over the last 2 seasons. That's truly incredible, and more celebrating for us Kings fans, right, Cal?
That's right. And for all those people out there who think De'Aaron Fox isn't a playmaker, he's assisted on 3 of those 4 game-winning shots, which is more than anybody else in the NBA in that time span. We want to give a big shout-out and a congratulations to Becky Hammond, the longtime San Antonio Spurs assistant, has accepted a deal to become the richest coach in WNBA history. She will be taking over the Las Vegas Aces. She is also going to be the team's GM. Many people thought she would be a front runner to get a job in the NBA and might be holding out for that, but it appears that money talks, and she is now the head coach in the WNBA of the Las Vegas Aces.
Yeah, that's a very exciting move from her, and I'm very happy for her. You know, if she does hope to make it back to the NBA one day, you know, this definitely is another stepping stool to help her. Or if maybe she decides to stay in the WNBA, I think she's going to have a ton of success. That Las Vegas Aces team is stacked. Speaking of stacked teams, I know the Lakers have not been playing well this season, but they just agreed to send veteran point guard Rajon Rondo to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Denzel Valentine. The Lakers are expected to waive Denzel to open up a roster spot, and the Cavaliers are welcoming in Rondo after losing Ricky Rubio for the rest of the season. Also want to give a shout out to LeBron James. He just turned 37 on December 30th.
Yeah, 37 years old, and the King just had 37 points the other night. He strung together a huge streak of 30-point games. I think he's up to 6 in a row now. He's definitely not been the issue for the Los Angeles Lakers this season. Amazing what he's doing at such a developed age, right, Barry?
It is, and not a good week of basketball for the LA Lakers. However, your Sacramento Kings have been playing pretty well this week, Cal. 2-1 victories over the Thunder and the Mavericks. A loss to the Grizzlies, a wire-to-wire loss. We saw Davion Mitchell come back this week. We saw Marvin Bagley come back this week. We saw De'Aaron Fox come back this week. And they've all been playing a little sporadically. We did get to see Marvin Bagley start the last 2 games. Haliburton's been playing well. We got to see that incredible game winner by Metu. And we've also seen the return of Richaun Holmes.
Yeah, like we've gotten used to with the Kings, nothing was perfect this week, but a 2-1 record is definitely an improvement. It's just clearly good to see the team start to get healthy again and have all these bodies as they work themselves back into the lineup. I think that we can expect to see the Kings continue to be competitive, especially if they get out, make some stops, get out in transition, which is where De'Aaron Fox is at his best. It was great to see him make that great play on the assist to Chimezie Metu to hit that 3 in the corner. Tyrese has definitely been not so much the wild card, but the driving force in why the Kings are playing better as of late. 5 double-doubles in his last 6 games. He's really been incredible and on point for Sacramento. I think it's safe to say, Barry, that if he continues to play like that and the Kings are able to string together some stops defensively, they're going to be a competitive team on most nights, no matter who they're playing.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of players that have been playing well lately, let's talk about Damian Jones.
Yeah, Damian Jones has begun to turn a lot of heads since he scored a career-high 23 points against the San Antonio Spurs. Even more recently, Jones has been getting more consistent minutes. He's played at least 22 minutes in the last 3 games for the Sacramento Kings, and he's looked pretty good in all of those. So, Barry, would you actually consider starting Damian Jones if Richaun Holmes continues to struggle?
I'm not ready to start him at this point, but I do like everything that I've seen from him, including 15 big points against the Grizzlies. You know, you mentioned an uptick in minutes as of lately. That's probably due to the Richaun Holmes injury, but he's only averaging 12 minutes per game on the entire season, which is 8 minutes less than last year. I would like to see him get some more minutes, figure out a way for Alvin to fit him in this lineup because he has been productive when he's been out there. He's averaging 4 points and 4 rebounds, 5 points and 4 rebounds on the season with above 50% field goal percentage. So I really like that. Dude needs to get some more minutes for sure.
No, I agree. Unfortunately, I think Alex Len is the odd man out here. We haven't seen him or Tristan Thompson much lately. I think the Kings are much better as a team when they have a more athletic center in there, somebody like a Damian Jones, Richaun Holmes, or even a Marvin Bagley if he's going to be playing the 5. I would totally agree with you. I think Damian Jones has a lot of potential, moves his feet on defense really well for a big man, has that beautiful turnaround fadeaway that none of the other centers on this team have. So I agree. I think he should continue to see more playing time here for the Kings. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, the debate is on Tyrese or De'Aaron. Who you got to lead this team?
All right, welcome back here. So we are diving into this debate on De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Haliburton, two young, good point guards on the Sacramento team. And I say point guards because, although they've been starting at the 1 and 2 this year, both of them seem to play really well in that starting point guard position. So, Cal, Tyrese is leading in all statistical categories except for points per game, field goals attempted, and minutes. I want to hear your take on this debate.
Well, first of all, I just think it's unfortunate that Kings fans everywhere have to have this debate on a daily basis. It would be a dream come true if both of these guys could coexist on the same team and it could work, for the Kings going forward. They could build around both of these players. The question is that actually a realistic scenario? As Tyrese has emerged into more of a centerpiece on this team and started to run the offense more, he's really, really started to blossom. And I think that takes away a little bit from what De'Aaron Fox can do offensively. You're not going to see the regular 25 to 30-point outbursts from De'Aaron if Tyrese is shooting more consistently, handling the ball a lot more, and running the offense. In an ideal scenario, the Kings would actually become a much better team defensively, and both of these guys could succeed on the offensive end, because if you were a better defensive team getting more stops, getting more turnovers, that would allow them to get out and run more, which is where De'Aaron Fox is at his best. He could still score a ton in transition then, and you would use Tyrese where he fits best in the half court, running the offense through the pick and roll, and maybe both of those guys could end up scoring 20 points a little more consistently in the same game. The question is that actually doable? And that's all on the players at this point. We've talked about it all the time this year, but they have to accept responsibility of being a better defensive team first and foremost.
Yeah, that is really the dream scenario there, and whether that is achievable is something we're going to have to figure out here as the games go on. One thing to take of note here is when Tyrese is on the court, the team assist percentage and steal percentage both go up, and they both decline when De'Aaron Fox is on the court. It's a very limited sample size in this season. Tyrese has missed 2 games. The Kings lost both of those games. De'Aaron's been out for 4 games. The Kings were able to win 1 of those games. So very, very limited sample size here. But as you mentioned, Tyrese has been on an absolute streak the past few games. He's been shooting the ball lights out, and he's really been dishing a lot.
Yeah, Kings fans everywhere are hoping, bottom line, that these two become stars together and they lead this Kings team back to the playoffs. Well, just like there's been a debate between De'Aaron Fox or Tyrese Haliburton, the power forward position on this team has been an area of need all year long. It's been a revolving door of guys to start and play big minutes in that spot. Lately, it's been pretty much between 2 guys, Metu and Marvin Bagley. Both of them have slowly worked their way more and more into the lineup this season. Metu has started 16 games this year. Marvin Bagley has now started 3 and the last 2 consecutively. They're both averaging up over 20 minutes per game now. Marvin Bagley at around 9 points per game, Metu at around 8 points per game. Barry, this is a position that the Kings desperately need someone to take a stranglehold of and become the full-time starter. The question is, between these 2 guys, who are you more inclined that will be the person that takes that spot?
It's funny, you and I have both been back and forth on this all season. We were calling for Metu to start earlier on when Marvin Bagley was benched, and then we were calling for Marvin Bagley to start when Metu was starting. We're kind of all over the board here. I don't want to take anything away from Chemezi because he's played really, really great at times this season, including that buzzer beater against the Mavericks on Wednesday night. But I think the correct answer here is Marvin Bagley. He's a guy that you took number 2 overall in the draft. He's making $11 million this season. He does rebounding very, very well, and that's something that the Kings have been lacking. I think you really have to figure out what is going on with this guy, whether he's in your future plans. He's a restricted free agent at the end of this season. So I think he is the guy to start at this point because you need to figure out exactly where Marvin Bagley fits with the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, I agree with that the Kings definitely have some decisions that need to be made about Marvin Bagley, and it would make those decisions a whole lot easier if he could just step into a starting role and be a very productive player for this team. Both guys have had opportunities that they have, sometimes taken advantage of and sometimes let slip through their fingers. Neither one of them has been shooting really, really well this year, especially from outside. Both of them are in the 20s percentage-wise from three. I am a big Chimezie Metu fan. I've always liked his game. I think he has actually more potential than Marvin Bagley because of his athleticism. If he could be a better outside shooter, he's also a really effective defender with his length. He can switch and guard multiple positions, moves his feet pretty well. So if Chimezie Metu would actually step up and take this starting job, I think it would be better for the Sacramento Kings, who were probably planning on letting Marvin Bagley go or trying to trade him when the year began anyway. But that being said, I do think you're right about Marvin Bagley having the more experience, being that kind of go-to guy in his career, even going back to his college days and high school days. He would be somebody who could more quickly solidify that starting position if he continues to play much, much better like he has as of late.
Yeah, and if you do plan on trading Marvin Bagley before the trade deadline here, having him start through the rest of the way might be one way to rebuild his trade value. Speaking of guys who Calvin and I have not wanted to trade, but his trade value is pretty low right now, Rajon Holmes is returning. He just returned from that eye injury. He's now wearing goggles, and he says he will wear them for the rest of his career. So, Cal, he's missed 10 games this season. The Kings are 4-6 in those games. He had a really, really hot start to the season. 9 out of the Kings' first 13 games, Rajon Holmes had double-digit rebounds. He's only done it once since then. He's failed to score double-digit points or rebounds in the last 4 games since his return and the 2 games prior to that, which is pretty surprising to me. Cal, what's your take on this?
Well, I think the biggest thing is he just is still working his way back into this lineup. As you mentioned, he's missed a bunch of games. He's now adjusting to having to wear the goggles again. Even though he did in the past, it's been a long time, so I'm sure it still is some sort of an adjustment period for him. And the biggest thing for me is he just isn't getting the same type of consistent minutes that he's used to getting. We used to see Rajon Holmes play pretty much throughout the game very, very consistently as long as he wasn't in foul trouble. Now, I don't know if he's on a minutes restriction because they're trying to get his stamina back up or his energy level back up there. Also, Damian Jones has played much, much better, while Rajon was out, so maybe they're trying to give some minutes to him. But I'm not concerned about Rajon yet. We still have Tyrese Haliburton on this team who knows how to maximize Rajon Holmes' abilities when he's out there. I think it's just more a question of him getting back to a consistent energy and stamina level so he can play those heavy starters minutes again, and we'll start to see the numbers and the production value go back up as well.
Yeah, it's pretty weird considering a guy who's dealing with an eye injury having stamina issues because, if I were to think about injuring any part of your body, the eye doesn't seem to affect your ability to do cardio work. But what am I,
game shape is a different thing too, right? Though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Calvin and I are going to take a quick break so that we can get into game shape. And when we come back, we're going to jump into questions from you, the fans.
Welcome back to the Royal Report. Time to ring the bell. It is our favorite time here on Double R. It is cowbell questions. Thank you as always for your submissions. We love to hear from you guys. We got a full set of questions today from our fans, so let's get right to it with our first question, which is, Barry, who in Kings draft history went on to have the best career? This is from BV50.
Well, BV seems to think it's Kenny the Jet Smith. I'm going to disagree here. If you're talking about TV careers, I would agree with you. But as far as basketball careers, I could take this question a couple different ways. If we're talking about Kings, as in Royals, Rochester Royals, all the way to Kansas City, I definitely got to take Oscar Robertson. Best player by far ever to wear a Royals or a Kings jersey. Now, if we're talking just Sacramento history, I got to go with my guy Peja. Awesome three-point shooter, broke all sorts of records, was able to win a title with Dirk in Dallas. Calvin, what's your take on this?
Well, Barry, as you know, I am a very literal person, so I agree with you. It depends on how you actually interpret this question. To me, it didn't say anything about Sacramento Kings history, so I'm looking at the history of the franchise, and you're 100% correct. Oscar Robertson is by far one of the greatest players, not only to wear a Kings or a Royals jersey, but to play in this league, period. He was the 1971 NBA champion, league MVP in 1964, a 12-time All-Star, 3-time All-Star Game MVP, 9-time All-NBA first team. I mean, it's not even close. However, I did try to go back through the history of the team and see if there was anybody that you could even mention in the same breath as him. And I have two other surprise candidates here for you. First, Nate Tiny Archibald, 1981 NBA champion, 6-time All-Star. He was the 1981 All-Star Game MVP and a 3-time first-team All-NBA performer. And then in terms of who had the best extended career, I want to throw a wild card in there for you. How about Mike D'Antoni? I know he doesn't have a lot of success in the NBA itself, but this is between a player and a coach. As a player, 2-time EuroLeague NBA champion, 5-time Italian League champion, 6-time Italian League steals leader, and then as a coach, 2-time NBA Coach of the Year, and he won 2 more Italian League championships as well. The guy is a very, very accomplished person in basketball in general. Overall, very few people have a career like that, whether it's overseas or not. In terms of who is the best Sacramento Kings player or who had the best career, it's hard to disagree with Kenny Smith just because he has the 2 championships, but he never was an all-star performer at any point in his career. So I do like Peja as well. And I'm going to give you one more guy who wasn't drafted in the Sacramento Kings area, but right before it, Otis Thorpe, who actually won a title with Kenny Smith on those Houston Rockets. Just one of them. Wasn't part of the repeat, but he was also a NBA All-Star performer as well.
Wow, great answer, Cal. Great answer. And I want to give a shout out to Tiny Nate because he was on my list as well here. All right, moving on. So next question, Cal. When do you guys honestly think the Kings playoff drought will end? Will it reach 20 years? And this is by John.
Well, very, very difficult question to answer, John. I certainly hope it doesn't get to 20 years. I'm going to go make a prediction here that it will not get to be that point. I think a lot of Kings fans don't know really what we would do if it got to 20 years before they made the playoffs. I'm going to say I really wanted to, at the beginning of the year, say that it was going to end this season. I don't feel as confident right now as I did earlier in the year, but I'm going to say that it does not get above a 17-year drought, which sounds ridiculous to say anyway.
Yeah, I think my positive attitude for this season is waning a little bit, but I think the Kings are going to make the playoffs next season. So I'm going to go 16 years.
All right. Our last question here is again from BV50. And Barry, he wants to know, do you think a De'Aaron Fox for Miles Turner trade would be possible?
I do think that that's possible. I don't see the Pacers really having a point guard that they're going to build around other than Malcolm Brogdon. And I think him and De'Aaron Fox could play really well together. They want to move on from Miles Turner. If I'm the Kings, I definitely want more than Miles Turner. I want Karis LeVert and Miles Turner. I want a draft pick or 2 as well. But I do think it is a possible scenario.
Yeah, we've talked about getting Miles Turner a lot on this show and on the Royal Rebounds podcast. I'm a huge, huge fan of Miles Turner's. I think he would be a great addition to this team. But I agree with you. Do I think this trade is possible? Yeah, it's possible, but it's not going to work just the 2 of those straight up together. First of all, De'Aaron Fox makes too much money for that deal to go through if it was just the 2 of them, and I don't want to trade De'Aaron Fox for Miles Turner straight up. I agree with you. I need to get more back in return, whether it's draft picks and a guy like Karis LeVert or another player. But that being said, Miles Turner would be a great addition to this team. I still have a lot of issue trading De'Aaron Fox. I think the deal needs to be the perfect deal for me in order to make that happen. But certainly a guy like Miles Turner would make me think twice about it. That's all the time we have for Cowbell questions. Thank you guys again for your submissions. If you'd like to hear Barry and I answer one of your questions on a future episode of the Royal Report, you know the drill. Just write it down in the comments section below this video and hashtag it Cowbell Questions.
Cal, can you ring that bell for us one more time? All right. That's our favorite part of the show. Okay, moving on here. So Davion Mitchell just returned to action Wednesday night against the Dallas Mavericks. Calvin, he's averaging 25 minutes per game this season, just under 10 points a game. He's shooting 40% from the field, and he's playing his usual awesome defense. I think he definitely needs to work on his free throw shooting, as he's only about 66% on the year. But Cal, how are you feeling about Davion?
I feel great about Davion. As most people who've heard me talk about him probably already know, I'm a huge, huge fan of his. I'm a defense-first guy, and this is one of the biggest areas that the Kings need to improve on. And he's already turned into, in my opinion, the best defender on the team. The offense has slowly started to come along as well. He was really picking it up in the month of December before he had to be sidelined with the health and safety protocols issue. But now he's back, and first came back, what does he do? Comes out, starts 5 of 5 from the field. He's hitting threes. You're right, the guy does need to become a better free throw shooter, but I think that there's a ton of potential with this kid, and the Kings already have a log jam at the point guard position, even though they've played De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Haliburton side by side. I think that if you're going to make a move here and move on from one of the two, either De'Aaron or Tyrese, it is incredibly important that you keep Davion Mitchell on this team for now as the backup point guard, because I think this guy is steadily blossoming into a potential star in this league.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, I'm a little disappointed that we were not able to see more from Davion while Fox was out, because obviously Davion went into the health and safety protocols as well. I would have loved to have that opportunity to see him play a little bit more, maybe a starting role, maybe play alongside Tyrese Haliburton, see how their chemistry rolls. But, you know, everything that I've seen from Davion this season, I'm completely satisfied with. If I'm nitpicking here, I'm going to say you need to work on the free throw percentage. I like the defense that he's played this year, but he's only averaging 0.7 steals per game and 0.2 blocks per game. TJ McConnell and Jimmy Buckets are up at the top of that steals list at about 2 per game. I'd like to see Davion up towards the top of that list, and I definitely think he has the ability. You know, rookie seasons are tricky because guys are integrating themselves into a new team, into a new offense, into a new system, and also into a new league, changing homes, all this stuff all at the same time. It is a whirlwind of emotions and things going on. So I definitely I believe I will continue to see Davion improve as the games go on here.
Yeah, you're right. You would like for him to be up at the top of the list in steals, you know, amongst the league leaders. But in my opinion, he's still such an effective defender, and not having or not getting a consistent steals number doesn't mean that you're not playing great defense. He affects the game in so many other ways, and every team is looking for a guy who can be that perimeter stopper, somebody who is always in the face of the team's best player, the guy that handles the ball consistently on offense. That goes way beyond the stat sheet, and Davion already has that ability, so you love to see that. All right, let's move it on here to the end of the show where we look ahead to the next week of Kings basketball. Schedule, again, doesn't get any easier for these Kings, who are now back to full strength. They're going to play the Dallas Mavericks again at Golden One Center tonight. Mavericks are still dealing with a bunch of players being out in health and safety protocols. The Kings will then play the Miami Heat, who are also dealing with a COVID outbreak of their own at home. Then they go on the road for one game to play the hated Los Angeles Lakers before returning back to Golden One Center for the last game of the week. Barry, how you feeling here?
Well, I feel a little bit better about this Mavericks game tonight due to the win on Wednesday. As you mentioned, the Mavericks are missing a ton of players. I don't know what the final roster is going to be like for tonight's game, but they did miss 9 players on Wednesday night, 8 of them in health and safety protocols, including Luka Doncic and a couple other of their starters. The Kings definitely need to zone in on Porzingis tonight, and they need to play better defense on Jalen Brunson as well. Calvin and I will be live post-game here on the channel doing our post-game podcast, so make sure you all catch us for that. The Heat are also, as you mentioned, dealing with a COVID outbreak, so I really don't know how to take that game at this point. These things develop, and they kind of happen very, very fast. Then they go on to play the Lakers, who, you and I have a great disdain for, and they're still dealing with an injury to Anthony Davis. They just traded a Rajon Rondo, and they are not playing well. They are below 500 on the season. It is an away game, but it is in California, so not a lot of traveling for the Kings this week. I think that they do have a chance in that game, but LeBron James, shout out again for the birthday, has been playing incredibly well, 37 points in his last game as well. And then the Hawks game is a mystery to me. I'm not really sure what to expect from this Hawks team. We saw them struggle out the gates last season. They end up firing their coach, playing much better, getting to the playoffs. They have a lot of young and talented players on this Hawks team. But I'm not really sure how the Kings are going to match up against them.
Yeah, very interesting game. We also saw Trae Young go into the health and safety protocols as well. I have no idea what his status or availability will be by the time the Kings and Hawks match up. As you mentioned, it's such a guessing game now in the NBA as to who will play on any given night. So this goes without saying that the Kings will have a tough slate of games here, no matter who's on the court. These are all really, really good teams. That are playoff teams either a year ago or in playoff contention for this season. Kings just have to continue to play better, continue to build on the momentum that they've got going here from this 2-game win streak, a nice game winner, and they have to continue to get stops. That will always be the number one thing that we mention first with the Sacramento basketball team. It's not how many points they can score, it's how many points they will allow.
Exactly. Well, we want to thank you all for joining us for episode 10 of The Royal Report. If you're a Kings fan, make sure you smash up that like button. If you enjoy content like this, consider subscribing to the channel. Make sure you guys check us out on Twitter, Royal_Rebounds. We're also on Instagram, Royal Rebounds. You can check out our website for some awesome merchandise at royalrebounds.com. We'll catch you all tonight live after the Dallas Mavericks game, and we'll see you all next week for another episode of the Royal Report. Make sure you guys throw your questions, your cowbell questions down in the comments. Hashtag them cowbell questions. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a good Friday and a wonderful weekend. And in the meantime, go Kings.
Happy New Year. Go Kings.